This program is a Creative Magic Network and Maura Sweeney collaboration.
Welcome to the Maura Sweeney podcast. Maura is an international speaker, Huffington Post contributor, and the trademarked ambassador of happiness. In 10 minutes or less, Maura weaves clever anecdotes, insightful questions, and personal stories to challenge your mindsets and enable you to live happier from the inside out. Here's Maura with today's podcast for you.
Are you living out of your belief? Well, if you're on a path to living happy from the inside out, you'll definitely want to ask yourself this simple but very profound question. Are you living out of your belief? Now, that's a huge question because most people believe one thing internally, and oftentimes their outside life is totally in disagreement with what they believe internally. Let's get started with just looking at the dictionary meanings for the word belief. First of all, belief is described as the mental act, condition, or habit of placing trust or confidence in a person or thing. It's also known as faith. Secondly, belief is defined as mental acceptance or conviction in the truth or actuality of something. And third, belief is described as something believed or accepted as true, especially a particular tenet or a body of tenets accepted by a group of persons. Now, are you living your beliefs out? Most of us have beliefs internally that register with us as true. They feel right, they resonate right, and yet we are so often conformed to our outside world, to outside thoughts, to outside experts and behaviors that we either negate or deny our internal beliefs. One of the easiest ways to determine when you are not living out of your belief is if you take stock of various places you find yourself in the course of your day or the course of your life. Maybe it's at work, maybe it's in certain relationships, maybe it's out in your community. And when you're in the midst of these situations or these conversations, you pay a little attention to your body language, and if you feel yourself constricting, feeling uncomfortable, generally it's because your internal belief is being suppressed. Now, I'm going to give you just two little remembrances from my own life so that you could do the same in your own. I want you to know that when you live out of your internal belief and you express it outwardly, you're actually making yourself happier because you're unifying your internal thoughts with your external expressions and behaviors. My earliest recollection comes from being around 9, 10, maybe 11 years old. And some of you may know this, but little girls can tend to be cliquey and catty. And I remember one day being with girls in my class, and they had just outed another little girl in our classroom who was quite a nice girl. And I remember sitting in that group, small group, as there was conversation, very unpopular and not nice, about the girl that was just outed. Now, not only did I sit in there and giggle along with these other girls, but I also added a few of my own little choice pieces of content to contribute to the feeling of how I wanted to be with this group. By the time I walked home from school that day, I felt terrible. My feelings felt terrible, and here's why. Everything I had spoken about or agreed with externally against that other little girl, who I knew was a nice little girl, made me feel awful. And what was the reason is that I knew the little girl was a nice girl. I knew that I was agreeing with the greater group of girls because I had a fear of being excluded. But I felt so terrible that I remember thinking, oh my gosh, I will never do this to myself again because I didn't know how to undo that behavior. All I knew is that I didn't want to repeat it. Now, that was one of my earliest recollections of realigning myself with an internal belief system where I didn't want to speak poorly. I didn't want to trash other people in public or any other way. But it was one of my earliest recollections of having to connect my internal belief systems with external behaviors. I will tell you that over the course of my life, I've had to almost extricate myself into my own room sometimes when I've been in the company of familiar people that would be trashing someone and making me feel badly. And yet, it wasn't until my 50s when I started blogging that I actually took yet another step, and that was to publicly write down in a blog for public consumption the truth about my belief system. And that is that in my heart, I like everybody, and I look for reasons to accept, approve, and always wish for other people the very best things for them that I would wish for myself. Every expectation, every good is what I expect for others. Believe it or not, making such a public disclosure for me was challenging. I remember thinking to myself, well, how will others see me if they know that I like everybody and that I don't walk around with either a chip on my shoulder or any prejudice against any group or people or belief system? And it was a big step, but I'll tell you, that was part of my process of going and taking my beliefs and externalizing them for the outer world. When we do that, what we're really doing is turning ourselves into one person. Said another way, we're unifying our internal beliefs and thought systems with our external expression. Now, why is this important? It's because if we separate what we believe from what we are expressing, we end up really feeling terrible, or we feel confused, or we feel frustrated, and that kind of feeling ends up expressing itself in other ways. We might lash out at people we don't want to lash out at. We might pick up a bad attitude, all because we're not being truthful with ourselves. It's because we are not publicly expressing an internal belief. And those kinds of expressions come in our body language. They come across our face, our smile, but they also can come across in other ways as well. Now, when you're on your own today, and when you're quiet, sit by yourself, maybe close your eyes, maybe put your hand right over your chest below your collarbone, and ask yourself, what do I believe? Expect an answer to come that will be unifying, inspiring, and uplifting. And make sure you smile when you hear it. That very belief may challenge you, because it may also remind you of the fact that you haven't been living consistently according to your beliefs. And also know this. Each one of us has various steps that we take in life that brings us from a feeling of disunity, disharmony, or fracturedness within ourselves to a unification and an integration. But as we do that individually, do you know that we actually enlighten the rest of the world so that others too may be able to integrate and live from the inside out according to their belief? So I hope today will greatly inspire you and will also empower you to live happy from the inside out. But before we go, let's listen in to someone else share what makes them happy from the inside out too. This has been Maura with Maura for You.
My name is Jodi Flynn, and I'm from Portland, Maine. I am the host and founder of Women Taking the Lead, where I inspire women from humble beginnings to overcome self-doubt so they can lead with confidence, integrity, and of course, a sense of humor. And what makes my heart happy is spending time with my nieces and nephews and really getting their perspective so that I can see the world through their eyes. And that's what makes my heart happy.
For more insights on living happy from the inside out, subscribe to this podcast. To learn more about Maura, visit her MauraForYou.com website, where you'll find videos, blogs, books, and the Foundations of Happiness self-study e-course. Maura, number 4, letter U.com, where Maura is always for you.
Alrighty, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. How did you like it? How did you like it? I just want to say a quick thank you to everybody out there, and also everybody who contribute to our Patreon page. You are really helpful to this show, and we are grateful for your help. In case you're wondering, Patreon is a simple way for you to contribute to the podcast and get super cool exclusive rewards in return. I promise you will love the perks. Our Patreon page is at frederickby.com. That's Frederick with a C. buy.com, and click Patreon in the header. The money is used to cover our production costs and enhancements. It is also used to cover our editing time and sharing to different podcast channels. You can contribute for as low as $1, and you can even choose your platform, either Podbean or Patreon.com. See ya next time.